We all want to be faster. We want to be better. We want to be first. But we don't start out first. In fact, we almost always start from the back of the pack. So if you're not first, and you'd like to be first, you have some options. Different ways you could get there. The first option you could try is follow the leader. This strategy assumes that whoever's out front, whoever's first, whoever got there first, must know what they're doing, and that the best strategy is to just follow them around, right? Because, hey, they're the experts, and they're up front. The problem with this strategy is that, by definition, you're always behind, and it's an ugly view. All the good food gets eaten before you show up, and you also have to watch where you step. This strategy is not a winner, and so some people have the brilliant idea that we'll just try to leapfrog the leader. We are going to leapfrog the leader by being better. This essentially takes the playbook of the leader and says, I'm going to improve on it. You hear the term, we're going to beat them at their own game. The challenge with that approach is if they call it their game, well, then they get to make the rules. And it's very difficult to beat someone at their own game if they got really, really good at it already. So the problem is the only thing worse than the back of an elephant is the front of an elephant. This is not where you want to be. Playing around with this guy back or front is going to be ugly. Fortunately, there is a third option. The option is to be different. You don't have to follow the elephant around. And you don't have to get up front and get trampled by the front hooves. You can chart your own path, you can make your own way, you can set aside the status quo, and you could land number one, following your own way. My favorite example of this is the story of Southwest Airlines. Southwest Airlines had an elephant problem from the very day they started. 6 other major airlines were already in the market, they were already huge, they already had massive market share. They had a jumbo elephant problem. You could call it a Dumbo problem. Flying elephants as far as the eye could see. Now, Southwest could have done what comes naturally, which is to follow around 6 other airlines. Surely they must know what they're doing. After all, they've all been around for decades, and they all seem to know what's going on. But they didn't do that. They also didn't try to play the leapfrog game and get trampled in the process. They set out on a path that was fundamentally different from what any of the other airlines were doing. For starters, they said every other airline flies multiple different aircraft types. We are going to fly only the Boeing 737. Every other airline has assigned seating. We're going to do first come, first serve seating. You'll load the plane in the order you arrive. Every other airline flew into the expensive airports, Chicago O'Hare, Houston Intercontinental. Southwest said no, we're going to fly only into the cheaper secondary airports, like Chicago Midway, Houston Hobby. Next up, every other airline did this hub and spoke routing, where you fly to a major city and then you go from there to your final destination. Southwest said no, we are going to focus on doing just point-to-point hops back and forth across the United States. And last of all, Southwest said, while everybody else is focused on these expensive international fares, we're going to focus right here in America for the first decades of their existence. Well, how did that turn out for them? It turns out the best judge of a strategy is whether ultimately you're profitable, whether ultimately you can make money. The problem with what all the other airlines were doing is that it was the leapfrog strategy. It was the I've got frequent flyer miles. Well, I've got air miles. Well, I've got sky miles. Well, I've got space miles. And within 6 months, all the airlines are the same again because they all copy each other. The problem with this strategy is when you don't differentiate, when you're not different from what the marketplace offers, then you have essentially a commodity. And when you have a commodity, you compete on price. And if everybody competes on price, nobody makes any money, bad things start to happen. Now, all these 6 airlines are still with us today. Apparently, in the airline industry, you can actually go bankrupt, and it's okay. It's like a bath. You just take it every now and then. You emerge from bankruptcy. Unfortunately, you pick up the same playbook that bankrupted you the first time, and you do it all over again. So, while all these airlines are all playing leapfrog with each other, they're all the same. You can't even tell the difference. You sit, if you didn't whip out the seat back pocket thing and look at which airline you're on, you wouldn't even know. So how'd that turn out for them? Well, over the last decade or two, US Air goes bankrupt, Delta goes bankrupt, Northwest Air goes bankrupt, United goes bankrupt, American Air goes bankrupt, and ultimately Continental is losing so much money, they have to merge with the newly unbankrupted United to avoid financial problems. The whole while, Southwest Airlines is making billions in profit. That is what happens when you have an elephant problem and you don't try to play their game. You don't follow them around. You don't play a death game of leapfrog. You chart your own course, and in their case, starting with the 5 most fundamental elements about how people fly through the air, and changing every one of them to chart a course that was fundamentally different. Now, I'm here today because I had the opportunity 11 years ago to start a company, Bomgar Corporation. Right out of the gate, Bomgar had an elephant problem. We had major Fortune 500 competitors that were already in the market. They were already making tens of millions in revenue and already had unlimited resources. These are billion-dollar competitors, and we come in the market. We could have tried to follow them around and been nowhere. We could have played leapfrog and gotten crushed, but we followed the only strategy that honestly had any chance of working, and that was to chart a strategy that was built on being different. Here's how we did that. The first thing is every other competitor on the market sold their product essentially with a rental model. You paid a monthly fee to rent their product over the internet. We said that's fine. Some people like that. But we're going to sell our product in an ownership model. You actually own the product, and you just pay us for upgrades. Every other major competitor to Bomgar had a kind of suites of mediocre-ish products. We said, hey, if they're diversifying, we're going to focus. We're going to become the best at something in the world. Every other competitor did per-seat licensing, which meant you paid for the product for anyone who might use it. We said, we're going to do concurrent. You're only going to pay for the people that use the product simultaneously. Every other competitor thought all the action was in small and medium business. We said that's fine. You can go after the small and medium business. If that's what you all are focused on, then we're going to go after the enterprise. We're going to go after the Forbes Global 2000. We're going to go after every brand name you've ever heard of. And last of all, the reason we picked the color orange, I don't know how many people buy our product for that reason, but we didn't want to leave anything out. We thought, what would be the color that would be the most different, that would be a striking contrast to go with the business model that is totally different? This strategy was ultimately very successful. Bomgar became #1 in the world for enterprise remote support technology, with more big brand name customers using Bomgar by market share than any of our competitors. 7 of the best known 10 brand names in the world now run Bomgar. We would have gotten nowhere had we tried to solve the elephant problem by following them around or playing the leapfrog game. It only worked because we went and provided something to the marketplace that was fundamentally different from what you could already get. So you may be thinking, well, that's great for a business strategy. Be different for business. Well, this is actually a strategy that can apply to every area of our lives. So for example, let's take one of the 3 areas that's a theme for this conference. What does be different look like in the area of healthcare? Well, let me tell you what I think would be amazing in healthcare. What if you could walk into your family care physician, maybe a kid falls on the playground, maybe it's a routine checkup, but what if you could walk in and ring a bell? And an actual doctor walked out from the back to meet you. An actual doctor walks out and says, yeah, what do you need, Joel? I'm here for you and your family. Let's talk about your needs. What if that person spent as much as 45 minutes spending time with you, fulfilling a prescription, talking about whatever you needed. Wow, that'd be amazing. Is that impossible? It turns out family care physicians all across America have looked at this and said, no. It is not impossible, but to get to that level of concierge service and concierge medicine, you have to set aside everything you know about insurance. In fact, it turns out that if you take insurance out of the picture, suddenly your doctor works for you. Not an insurance company. Your doctor works for you and for your whole family. And no longer is your doctor covered in paperwork. There's almost no paperwork. Your doctor can actually spend as much as 5 times the amount of time with you, and there's virtually no wait in the waiting room. It's a total upside-down paradigm from what we have today, where you spend 45 minutes wait for 5 minutes with your doctor. How about 5 minutes or less wait to spend 45 minutes with your doctor? What an amazing paradigm. And what if, when you walked out, the doctor gave you their cell phone number and said, hey, give me a call if you need anything? I don't have my doctor's cell phone number today. Maybe you do, I don't. That is a very, very different approach to medicine. But wait, you probably have 2 questions. The first is, that's different, but I'll bet the cost is different too. It's one of those classic nice, but a little outside my price range sort of things. Well, I can tell you right now, right here in America, you can get plans for concierge medicine just like this for as low as $10 a month for a child, $50 to $75 a month for an adult, and even as little as $100 a month for those over the age of 65. The second question, of course, is are they real doctors, right? Because for that kind of price, how could they possibly be real doctors? Turns out, not only are real doctors doing concierge medicine, but they're actually better paid. As much as 33% better paid than the doctors of today. Let me walk through how that works. It's brilliant when you lay it across the be different paradigm. If you look at it, when you change who the payer is, suddenly the patient becomes the customer and not an insurance company. That massively reduces overhead. You go from having as much as 2/3 of the cost of healthcare, just the overhead of insurance and everything that goes with it, to less than 1/3 of the overhead in a concierge medicine environment. Without all that overhead, a doctor can have a patient-doctor ratio of as little as 600 to 1, rather than traditional medicine, which is closer to something like 2,000 to 1. It's hard to get that personal level of service when you're trying to share it with 2,000 other people. Next up, instead of spending an average of 8 to 12 minutes with your doctor can spend as much as 45 minutes with you. Everything about this paradigm is better. And let's just say also, the cell phone number might come with it. In fact, it often does, because when your doctor works for you, there is no motivation for anything other than the doctor solving your problems and meeting your needs. Which means the doctor can provide service by cell phone, or text message, or FaceTime on your iPhone, or Skype, or webcam, or social media. A whole plethora of options, because it's not about what the insurance company will and will not reimburse for. It's purely a relationship with you, with the question being, does this help you feel better, and does this meet your needs? The summary here is we live in a world where if you look around you, everyone seems to be trying to do what everyone's already doing. In most industries, with most people, in most countries, companies, and even in most states like Mississippi, there's this natural gravitational pull to follow those that are ahead, or to assume that success can be gotten by taking the playbook they're already following and adding minor modifications to it. The truth is, you can almost never get from the back of the pack to the front of the pack that way. Honestly, the only way that can consistently get you from the back to the front is to follow a strategy that is fundamentally different. Thank you so much.